welcome to the Squirrel Tale. Today I'm going to give my thoughts on the Goex powder company going through a closure and a hopeful sale to someone, and kind of what my thoughts are with it. So earlier this week we got word that Goex powder is going to, that the parent company Hodgkins, which along with the Goex brand owns their own smokeless powder company. They also own IMR. Other than a handful of oddball brands, if you're buying smokeless powder, you're probably shooting a Hodgkins product. And they also own Goex, so they had a good portion of the black powder market. Goex was formerly DuPont. It's been around since 1802 or 1804. Well over 200 years, and, has really helped us through a lot of our history. You think about, they were probably making powder for more of 1812 up through your modern wars. Not the latest ones, they've moved on, but things like, even they made powder for the Vietnam War. So but now what that means for us is, for the time being, their status is limbo. Now, I Love Muzzleloading channel, which I'll have a link to his video, did have a good interview with the president of the company, or the vice president of Hodgkins. Strongly recommend you watch that video to know the ins and outs of what's going on with Hodgkins and Goex. But it sounds like they ideally do want to sell the company to someone who wants to keep the muzzleloader hobby alive, which is a good thing. But until papers are signed and they're up, they're producing powder again, things are gonna be a little touchy with the situation. With the powder supply. Now, if there's powder, a store has in stock, I don't blame you if you want to get that extra can. But one thing I'll say is try to be semi-courteous, especially considering this timing's kind of bad, coming up on hunting season, which is only a few weeks away. Well, yeah, in PA, early muzzleloader starts 2 weeks away. And then you have late muzzleloader, and I'm across the country, there will be more muzzleloader seasons. So you don't get, max out your credit card and buy every pound of powder they have. Buy 1-2 cans, enough to get you through a while. But some other things, but hopefully, now the other option supply will be from the foreign powder companies. Swiss is a big one, and then there is, I believe, a couple others. Now obviously that supply is always kind of hanging there because it is importing explosives, and that's a highly regulated thing, or I think it's technically classified as hazardous material. But so with that being said, I do think for at least 6 months you're going to be looking at hit or miss on getting powder. Because that's going to, even if they do find the perfect seller, it's going to take them a little bit to do and get them back in operation, and Swiss is going to pick up operations, but that's still going to take time. So some things to consider in the meantime. short term. One thing that's being discussed a lot that I'm going to address briefly is making your own powder. It is something that if you're going to do, research and caution, research and caution. Those two words should be constantly what you're thinking. I'm by no means recommending you do it. I will say this, being self-sufficient is a great thing. Blowing your fingers off is a bad thing. Burning your house down is a bad thing. Burning your neighbor's, you in your neighbor's house is a very bad thing. Going to jail is a bad thing. Before you even think about doing it, go through, check the laws on it. It is, you're making something that's hazardous. It is regulated. Look up the laws, whether it's legal or not. I'm not saying, I'm not a lawyer. Do your research. And then if you decide that that's the route you want to do, I'm not recommending it. Caution, caution, caution. If you're going to do it, make sure you have the appropriate, and it's assuming it's legal, make sure you have the appropriate space. If it's not a place that you would feel safe to shoot a muzzleloader or set off fireworks, and it is not legal to do those two things, do not make powder there. You don't want to burn your house down. You don't want to blow yourself up. You also, assuming it is legal, again, do your research on that matter, whether or not it's legal or not. If it is, you don't want to be the guy who burns the neighbor's house down, and then they hear what you're doing, and then they pass an ordinance to make it illegal, and then the guy who's doing it responsibly is, gets a foot put at him. You don't want to be the guy who makes it illegal. So if you're gonna mess down that route, research it and caution. Again, I am not personally recommending it. I think it's, not something you want to do unless you really know what you're doing and that you honestly, and you are 100% sure that it's legal. Again, research and caution and common sense. But, so, now, something, though, that is a solution to, when it comes to flintlocks, we are very dependent on having this. It's the nature of the game. Flintlocks don't ignite other substitutes well. I don't like substitutes. I've never used them before. This came with, I had this was given to me. I wouldn't have this if it wasn't given to me. However, because of the shortage, I might try this in things like black powder cartridges, things that I know will ignite it. That way I'm not using, my genuine black powder. So if that's something like cap and balls, again, try to be courteous. If you're using something that doesn't need genuine black powder, try not to use it until the supply gets semi back to normal. If you have a gun that you can shoot both smokeless and black powder in, like I have a newer trapdoor 4570 I shot black powder in. I can shoot smokeless loads in it. I'm not going to be playing with black powder loads in that for the time being. I hope to in the future, but I'm not going to immediately try to do that. That's just something that, again, we're trying to limit the usage. Well, still showing there's a demand for it, and they would definitely be profitable for someone to buy the company, which, but while supply is short, if you can kind of find ways to use less while still participating in the hobby. If you're worried about your supply, one thing you can consider is what kind of load are you using? There's a lot of people I know that load 100 grains of powder in like a 50 caliber. And really they could probably, especially for target shooting, do just fine with 60, 70, 80. So if you can go from 100 grains to 70, now every 2 shots you're saving 60 grains of powder, so you're gonna save, that's a reasonable savings. You're gonna use 30% less powder. Your powder will last 30% longer. There's some of the simple things you can do. And also keep showing support, saying, hey, we want this hobby to continue. If you haven't already, sign that change.org petition. Again, I'll have a link down in there. That's just a way to show, hey, there's interest. We want to see American-made black powder. And that this sport's growing. And now that's the other thing I do want to discuss in this video. Kind of changing topic off the powder is... there is one more thing I want to say. Another thing to consider doing, that's a possibility. Way more research would have to be done if you're interested in this. But in regards to making it, maybe it wouldn't be a bad idea for someone else to start a smaller local black powder companies like you had years ago, where every couple towns regions had a small black powder producer. Because that, I think, is the downfall and the scary part about our hobby right now, as in it disappearing, is we're dependent on a handful of companies. We are dependent on, the Goex brand, which is it sounds like they're going to find a good buyer, but it is in a semi-state of limbo, and then a handful of other countries, so, it's obviously if there's someone watching this who has some resources, again, you'd have to do a lot of research with the ATF and a bunch of government agencies, but possibly look into starting a smaller mom and pop black powder shop could be something that could be good for the hobby. Just so we have, even if you're only selling your couple local shops. Again, I don't know the feasibility, you'd have to do research, but that's something that if you're in a position to do that, you have some funds, something to think about. Again, the other thing I wanted to discuss is how we keep the sport alive. And one thing that bugs me is I feel like sometimes people in the shooting sports are competing with each other. It feels that way sometimes. You have your guys shooting these, your guys shooting your hunting rifles, and then you have your guys shooting these. And, like I said, I like all of these types of guns. Again, the flintlock's my pride and joy. I also like these old World War II guns and World War I guns. which us in the World War II community have a lot in common. We both want to preserve these pieces of history and shoot them and practice and enjoy them, see what they're like to do. By shooting them, while it's nowhere near the experience our forefathers and our grandfathers went through, it gives that 1%, 0.5% taste, to live history a little bit, and then, to gain a respect for it. So us and this two crowd, we have a lot in common. And it's important to support each other on the hobbies. And even with the AR guys. I know that's something I see a lot of people who are into the hunting rifles, into the black powder. I know some guys who, if they want to shoot a muzzleloader, if they see a guy shooting an AR at the range, they go home and come another day. And partially I understand that, because especially if you're trying to sight it in, it's best to do it when it's quiet. But honestly, if I'm at the range with my flintlock and I see a guy shooting an AR, I offer him to let him shoot it. And I think that's the biggest thing we can do, is let people experience shooting black powder. Because if a guy who shooting this shoots this, maybe it'll spark some interest. At minimum, he will get a little taste of history. Now, one caveat, if you're going to do that, and I think this is one of our biggest issues in getting people in the hobby, make sure your gun's in good working order. I think some of your cheap kit guns, with coil spring locks, hurt the hobby, because people's first experience shooting a flintlock is, thing won't go off. I went out hunting, wouldn't go off. I tried to shoot the deer 5 times, and they're like, I'm done with this. They throw it in the corner, turns into a rust ball because they were so angry they didn't even clean it. Making sure someone's experience is good. I have a video discussing this where I have my girlfriend shoot one of my flintlocks. If you give someone a good experience shooting them at the range, that might spark interest. I mean, is it always going to? No. It's like fishing. You gotta keep flinging that lure out there. Eventually you're gonna hook something. So the more people you can talk and shoot, let them experience muzzling, the better chance that you'll bring someone over to the hobby. And there's nothing wrong to be into both these two guns. I love shooting all 3 of these guns. I love shooting. I actually don't shoot this one because it's an original, but look good for a prop. So, my other ones I do shoot. Look at my channel. I have plenty of videos, but you can have a lot of fun with these things. And just because you have ARs doesn't mean you can't have flintlocks, and vice versa. So biggest point I would say is, baseball players will say that that's American sport. That's BS. That's a lie. It's wrong, because baseball wasn't invented until well after the United States was founded. Shooting is American sport. It's undisputable. It's, truthfully, it's the sport that's been around the longest. It's the sport that helped win our freedom. It's the sport that helped keep us freedom, by people knowing how to shoot. The American rifleman. It's what, the hunters, people who fought in the Revolution, through modern day, our veterans, all great people. They're what kept us alive, and the people who learned how to develop the guns, people like John Browning, your colonial gunsmiths who made these guns, the flintlocks that were used in the Revolution. Shooting is our sport. It's truthfully America's sport. And it needs to stay that way. And the guys out there mag dumping with their ARs, they're the next generation, my generation. That's how I got into ARs. A lot of my friends shot them, college friends and stuff like that. And they need to be an ally for the muzzleloader sport because, hey, this is where it started. We need to keep muzzleloading alive, and yelling and being confrontational with people over them is not going to do it. If you're shooting your flintlock and you're complaining at the guy with the AR for mag dumping, he's probably not going to ever want to play with flintlocks because you just gave him a bad impression. I spend a lot of time at a range. 9 out of 10 people are nice. So that's kind of my thoughts on it. Talk. If you see someone shooting something different, figure out why they like it. Offer to let them, if you're shooting a flintlock, offer them to let them shoot it. If they seem, obviously you might want to make sure if they seem wackadoodle, don't let them do it, but if they seem like a good guy, let them shoot it. Let them have that experience. So again, the biggest thing is we need to be united in the muzzleloader community, and we need to be united in the gun community as a whole. As a Second Amendment advocates, if you know me, I do Second Amendment advocacy work. Support these guys here, GOA, because there's a lot of people who want our hobby to die. They want to see America not be our sport. And end of the day, that's something we can't happen. But I know this was kind of a different video. It was kind of a rant, but just some thoughts, my opinion. Take of what you will. But all I can say is keep shooting, keep your powder dry. Like and subscribe, and have a good day.
Thanks for watching. Remember to like, comment, subscribe for more great content, and check out our Instagram page at @SquirrelTailShow.